Good evening, Louisa Rebgetz with ABC News. The Prime Minister's plan to let the states raise some income tax has come to a shuddering halt. Instead, the Council of Australian Governments meeting has decided to consider revenue sharing. The Premier's left Canberra this afternoon with no extra money for education and just $3 billion more for health, which is well short of their demands. Here's political editor Chris Ullman.
The Prime Minister's big idea to let the states levy some income tax didn't survive the march of the premiers to Canberra.
There is simply not a consensus.
To the relief of the small states.
Tasmania was perhaps in the position of greatest risk.
There was some criticism of the way the debate was run.
It would have been best if that discussion came out in a different format.
But there is enthusiasm for examining swapping tied federal grants for a fixed share of income tax.
The Commonwealth has been prepared to share what is a growth tax, which is the income tax arrangements.
For most premiers, the real battle was over health and education funding cut in the 2014 federal budget.
That wasn't fair and that wasn't reasonable.
This fight goes back to two deals struck between the states and the Gillard government. In 2011, a health agreement pledged to pick up the tab for 50% of hospital costs from 2017. That added $57 billion in extra spending by 2024. The school funding plan added $9.8 billion to Commonwealth spending to 2017 and $23 billion over the decade. This is the $80 billion in additional health and education promises cut in the first Abbott budget.
The Gillard government's $80 billion of long-term commitments to health and schools were never credibly funded.
We also noted...
That's a view shared by the one Premier who was at those meetings.
I didn't at the time forever believe that that was a realistic number or that could be properly funded.
Premiers facing a funding hole aren't prepared to let the Commonwealth renege.
There is still a gap. There is still a huge gap.
Some ground was given on health funding.
Additional $2.9 billion in funding for public hospital services.
And there was some grudging thanks.
Hundreds of millions of dollars today in extra funding for, say, Victorian hospitals does not replace billions of dollars that have been taken away.
Careful. Okay. But there will be no more money for education this year, and the message from the Prime Minister is clear. He won't be raising more tax for the states to spend.
Work within that fiscal envelope that we have to get the outcomes that we need.
Many will see this tax slap down as another reverse for a Prime Minister who's already had too many this year. But Malcolm Turnbull's take is very different, that he offered the states the chance to take responsibility for the money they spend, and they cut and ran. Chris Ullman, ABC News, Canberra.